Hey guys, I'm Sun. I'm a privacy and a security researcher, and you're watching the Privacy Guides. 2 episodes back, I discussed why 1Password, in my opinion, is the best proprietary password manager out there. And the reason why is it has a great feature that allows you to synchronize your passwords among your devices, between your devices, without these passwords ever going through the internet to a cloud or another. This is done using your local network, and it's amazing. When I created that episode, some of you may have noticed that I did not enable two-factor authentication. And I really should have. The reason why I did not enable 2FA is because 2FA it really needed its own episode. And actually, before I can get to showing you guys how to set up 2FA in a secure way, I need to discuss Infosec versus Opsec. So Infosec is information security and Opsec is operation security. So examples of Infosec is using a password manager to generate unique, very strong passwords for each of your accounts. And that is done to mitigate data leak hacks. So for instance, there are millions of passwords linked to emails that have been leaked, and the passwords are in clear text. So if I'm trying to hack you or a bunch of people, I would try the passwords that are in those databases because a lot of people don't use different passwords for all of their accounts. Another example is encrypting data in transit. So when you log on to your bank, you're sending your email and password over the internet. You want to make sure that someone in the middle, and we call that a man-in-the-middle attack, someone in the middle between you and the server of your bank, you want to make sure that that person is not able to, get these credentials. Opsec, on the other hand, is operation security. We can see this as security in the physical world. So examples of Opsec, I'm looking at my notes here, is using a different password on your Mac and a different password for your password manager. The reasoning for that is if you're using biometrics to get into your Mac, I believe that's okay. I discussed that in my video on setting up Mac OS, but if you're using biometrics to log into your computer, that's fine because you're going to be entering that password a million times a day. And you want to make sure that someone cannot see it. That being said, if you're using biometrics on your iPhone and you're enabling, and that's actually encouraged by 1Password and other apps, and I believe you should never do that if you use biometrics to unlock your password manager, well, then you're opening yourself up to operational security risks, meaning if I have access to you and the phone, I can whack you on the head and take your thumb and unlock your phone, or take your face and unlock your phone. So that's actually really shitty Opsec. Another example of Opsec is leaving your computer unattended at the hotel during a conference or something. You have trade secrets on it and you just leave it in your hotel room, or maybe you put it in the vault. And by the way, vaults in hotel rooms, the little safes, are really shitty. I might do a video on that later, but essentially you don't want to leave your computer unattended because I could just take it and clone your hard drive, and then when I have a lot more time, I could try brute forcing your credentials to unlock the data. So those are examples of Opsec. The reason why two-factor authentication is such an interesting piece of your security stack is it's both Infosec and Opsec. So it's definitely Infosec related because providers say you're using two-factor authentication with 1Password. Well, 1Password will ask you for those two pieces of information. That means that if ever 1Password was compromised and somehow someone was able to crack the password, or if you were using the same password for 1Password than you are for LinkedIn, and say LinkedIn got hacked, well, they're asking you to, through two-factor authentication, add another piece of security that will make sure that you cannot be compromised just with that 1Password. In order for someone to break into a service such as 1Password when you have both a master password and two-factor authentication enabled, well, that person needs to have your password and to have a 6-digit unique token that's generated by a two-factor authentication app. Now, what the hell is two-factor authentication in the first place? Well, the most common implementation of 2FA, and I'm going to mess this up, is time-based one-time password, TOTP. Now, how that works is the service provider will give you a hash, so a kind of random string of letters and numbers, and that hash plus the current time are used through an algorithm that will generate a 6-digit code. And that 6-digit code is what you'll be asked to enter, and usually the code is valid for 30 to 60 seconds. That means that the window in which someone can hack you, given they have both of these pieces of information, is extremely short. Okay? It means if someone is using a keylogger on your Mac, you were hacked, someone has a rootkit, a backdoor, a Trojan horse, and they've installed a keylogger, well, they would have to be monitoring that keylogger continuously in order to grab, both your password and your 2FA and then get in a service. And a lot of those services, if they're well implemented, if the person wants to switch two-factor off, if it's well implemented, it would ask you for another code. And then that other code, well, you wouldn't be trying to do the same thing, so that code would not be present on your computer and they cannot break in. So two-factor authentication is a phenomenal way of protecting your accounts. But how to implement it correctly is challenging if you consider both Infosec and Opsec attack vectors. So the most common implementation that I've seen, and hopefully it's changed by now, if it has, please drop it in the comments and let me know, is that Google Authenticator doesn't have a master password to encrypt your hashes. When you scan a QR code to enable two-factor authentication for a service, what you're essentially scanning is that hash. So if the app, say Google Authenticator, is not asking you for a password up front, it means it's not encrypting your hashes on your device. And yes, if you're in the Apple side of things, your device is probably encrypted, but again, you're probably using biometrics, which means I can whack you on the head and I now have access to Google Authenticator, and that's bad. One essential piece of your security stack is using a different password, as I mentioned earlier in Opsec, using a different password for your hardware and a different password for your password manager. And that also applies to two-factor authentication apps. I never ever recommend using one app on one device for both password manager and two-factor authentication. The reason for that is if I have a keylogger on your computer, well, I can capture both. If you're using two separate apps on the same computer, well, if I've hacked that computer, I could get both, the master password to your password manager and to your two-factor authentication app if it's encrypted, and a lot of them sometimes are not by default. Whew, that's a mouthful. So how do you mitigate that risk? Well, you want to have your password manager on your computer for obvious reasons, and you want to have, let me log in here, and you want to have your two-factor authentication app on your mobile device. And the reason for that is the chances an attacker will be able to break into your Mac and to your phone and install two different sets of hacks to get your keystrokes, that's way, way, way harder. So you want to have your 1Password or equivalent on your Mac. You want that to be configured with a really strong master password, and you never want to use that same app or another app on that device for 2FA. So the reason why I wanted to take the time to go through all of this is for you guys to understand the prerequisites to having a great two-factor authentication app on your phone that both qualifies from an Opsec and an Infosec perspective. And the features that we're looking for are an app that will allow you to encrypt all of your hashes on the phone, and you'll use that password to have access to the 6-digit one-factor authentication tokens when you need them. And that app, you needed to have a way of backing up your data in an encrypted form, because if this is the only place where those hashes are and you lose your phone, you're doomed, you know? So you want to make sure that you're able to have good backup. So you want to make sure that whatever happens on your phone, there's a way to export those hashes in an encrypted form and store them somewhere else on another device, to make sure that you're safe. I'm going to create an episode, in the future. Whoa, a little confuser. I'm going to be creating an episode on how to think about backups, but that's really the subject of another episode. If you're into this, smash the subscribe button, and actually the episode on two-factor authentication is the next episode. So if you're interested in how to actually set that up, smash the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.